So I recently came across Arua Organic Farms. Arua is a location in Zimbabwe, FYI. Going by the channel, yeah, he's a farmer and he's obviously either relocated or invested back home from the UK. I get a lot of these recommendations because that's the kind of content I like to watch on my YouTube channel, so I understand why the algorithm fed me this one. The one particular video I want to respond to is the one that was titled "The Zimbabwean Culture Keeps You Poor." That really triggered a response in me, and I wanted to share my thoughts because there is a lot that I agree with and there's a lot that I think it's just going to take a few mindset changes for us to really start building generational wealth, because that's what we lack in Africa: generational wealth. We have so many resources and we've got so much potential. When you just look at numbers alone, we've got so much potential, but we are lacking in being able to just move, right? Regardless of where someone is in position in society, in culture, in location. I wanted to add on or comment on some of the things he said in that video. If you want to watch the full video, I'll link it down below. One of the things he mentioned was expectations set by just you simply moving from Africa to, let's say, the UK. You could have moved anywhere in Europe or in America or anywhere, okay? Typically what happens is somebody would have moved and they have left a family back home, or even they've been here for a long time, and so there is this expectation because you are abroad. And I want to speak to the person who has moved, because honestly, quite honestly, as tough, as hard, as harsh as it sounds, the buck stops and starts with you. In terms of the expectation to send money back home or to give or borrow or lend or support a family, a lot of the pressure comes from shame and, oh, how will I look if I don't do XYZ or if I do XYZ. Now, the thing is, I've seen people who work and they earn weekly 600, 700 pounds a week. And because they're doing a job like care work, for example, where maybe they're a living carer, they live in this person's house 24/7 and probably go home or somewhere where they can go and take a break for 1 week or two. A lot of times these people will say, what's the point of renting? And so all my money, I can keep it, I can save it, and I can send the majority of it back home. The problem with that mentality is, number one, the moment that money leaves the UK, okay, you have not invested it. It will not grow. And even if you are investing back home and you're sending money to build a stand or whatever you're doing, okay, the risk alone will tell you that that investment is too high a risk for somebody in your income bracket. But a lot of us, because financial literacy is honestly the biggest disease in Africa, and I'm not saying I have got it figured out, but what I'm saying is the difference between Jewish, English, whatever culture it may be, versus the African culture is usually the focus on building generational wealth. We tend to be so dependent on our children that we don't give them a kickstart. We don't even plan for that kickstart. But you who has made it outside of your village, outside of your town, outside of your country, the buck starts and stops with you in that fact, in that area of generational wealth. You might be viewed as mean, as inconsiderate, as selfish because this month you haven't sent as much money as you used to. But guess what? You're keeping some money in your pocket, but that money you've kept, you're investing it. You are also building something here. The thing is, whatever you're going to build in Africa versus what you build in a country that has stability and security, to an extent, the risk, it will be different for both of them. And that will inform you the success rate of that thing, whatever it may be. And so when you are on low income, or when you have more responsibilities than the income you have, you really have to have a low risk appetite, and you almost need to have an I don't care attitude in terms of what people will think of you or about you. No matter how much money you send back home and leave you with just 50 pounds or however small you think it is to last you until the next payday, those people you've sent money to, that school fees that you've paid, it's not going to be enough. It will never be enough. And do you know what? the day you drop dead, yeah, or whatever happens to you, or whatever happens to your job, their life will carry on with or without you. I know this sounds harsh, this sounds hard, but sometimes the best thing you can do for certain people, including family, is if they're asking for $100, you say, I have 10. This is the 10 I can afford. If they're asking for 1,000, you're saying, I have 20. This is what you do not want to start what you cannot finish or maintain in terms of sending money back home. The essence of his video was essentially about generational wealth. You will not have generational wealth if your paycheck, 80% of it is going back home. Even 50% or 40%, if it's going back home to feed somebody or something that is not going to give you money in return, you need to reassess that. You really need to. And I think we need to stop thinking that education is an investment. It is not. We're moving to a time and place where experience will speak louder than any degree, any PhD, any masters that you have or that your child has. You know, you have to just look at Zimbabwe in terms of the amount of people who are educated, but they have no job, or they're doing jobs that bring a very, 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 very low level of income. The people that are making it are hustlers. They are this by day and that by night. And even by day and night, they're doing several things. They have several sources of income. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just simply saying you sending money and working so hard so your child can have school fees, and at the end of the day you are left with nothing, it's not the wisest thing. The amount of elderly people, and by elderly I mean 40 years, 50 years plus, that I see and meet because of my line of work, who are still working, and for whatever reason now they've decided they want to go back home, and all they have for the time they've been in the UK is probably like 10k, 5k, and they're trying to say, I'm working hard because in November and December I've decided to go back home and just stay there. But they've been working, they've been here for years, and I'm speaking mainly in the care industry because that's where I have knowledge of, and that's where I have exposure of the facts, some of the facts I'm talking about. You will work for so long and have very little to show for it because you've been sending everything back home. Please, let's stop doing that. Pressure is what makes us not think about building generational wealth. Pressure will make you think about tomorrow and tomorrow only, surviving tomorrow and surviving tomorrow only. And the thing is, what you're doing is eating money that hasn't even arrived in your account. And by the time you've eaten that money, it hasn't even had the potential to grow. And so you will not have any compound that is happening in your life. There's no compounding effect happening in your income whatsoever, and that's what you want to avoid. And in terms of the points he touched on, the expectations from parents having their children look after them, this is again another cultural thing that is very, very real, especially if the parents have never left or been outside of their home country or their village. The expectation culturally is that our children, my children, will look after me very much. Politically, economically, things have changed. Back in the days, somebody could finish school and get a grant or get some sort of Kickstarter fund to buy a car, buy a house, and get going. Okay, I watched a video of someone preaching.
Life is quite difficult for young people. What's your take on that? Do you have any way?
Nitazoita mabushmen hunter-gatherers. Vaizo mabushmen vaiziva kuti hapasina nyama pano. Migrate. Saka ukada kufa uchiti uchida kugadzira nyika haichagadziriki.
I'll link that video below, because the guys were asking, what should we do because we are educated but there are no jobs? And the guy was saying, stop knocking on a closed door, move, relocate. I'm not sumburirwa panapa, like go somewhere where opportunities are real and fair, as long as you're willing to work. And that's sometimes what some people need to hear. And I know it might be easier said than done, but I think some of these things are things we need to hear before we can start thinking outside the box. Everyone's situation is very unique, but that doesn't stop you or keep you from thinking outside the box. And the main thing starts with your commitments. Do not commit more than what you can sustain. And that includes family as well. Okay, One of the things he mentioned in his video was around the marriage process, the lobola, the bride price process. If you don't know, the Zimbabwean community takes bride price very, very seriously. And some families, fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know, because I haven't gone through the process. I've not really seen it. I'm the firstborn, so a lot of things are going to be the first time for my family, including me even. But from what I hear, some families will take that as an opportunity to make some money, or some family will use that as an opportunity to be like, I don't need anything from you kind of thing. Okay, I think one thing he didn't mention in his video is the wisdom required when you are picking a spouse, whether you be a woman or a man, because I think we're at that time and place where before you go to anyone's parents, what you're saying to them and what you're doing with them or for them, both of you are in agreement already. I want to imagine whoever I'm going to marry, I'll tell them this is what's important to me, this is what will be important to my parents, and this is the middle ground where we can negotiate or try to negotiate. When we're going into that bride price conversation, it's a me and you, it's one pot. Me and you is one pot. There's no his money, there's no my money. It's one pot ultimately. And if the person you are marrying or intending to marry leaves you to have and manage those conversations alone, I don't know, like that conversation needs to happen before you enter those conversations with extended family members. Yes, this and that happens, but you can control what ultimately goes down or to what extent by having prior conversations in this day and age. Back in the days, that wouldn't have worked so much. In this day and age, I believe you can kick up a fuss and really stand for what you believe as a unit, as a couple, and communicate how far you can go in terms of negotiating whatever price, whatever they ask for. Okay, I love that part of my culture, of our culture. It's a prideful moment. It's not an opportunity to extort either sides. Unfortunately, our people sometimes do that, human beings being human beings. But I do think that there is a level of control you can have if you as a couple are super duper smart and just preempt certain things. I wouldn't be surprised, shall I say, if this video causes so much smoke. But honestly, I think it's high time we start thinking about, are we investing in the wrong things? Are we prioritizing the wrong things? This one about education, school fees, we need to revisit some of those ideas because it's starting to look not correct. It's not adding up. The amount of people that have been burnt, had their fingers burnt, we need to learn from them. And then we also need to pay attention, especially to the Jewish community, pay attention to the Asian community, how they are building generational wealth, how long they have been immigrants in this country, and looking at what they have achieved. Not to compare or to be jealous or to compete negatively, but you know, if the road has been run before, don't go and dig a new road. Follow that one. If it's working, follow that one and improve as you go. And I think that's where we might be missing it in our culture, in our communities. So I hope this video has sparked some food for thoughts for you. And yeah, I just wanted to comment because as a fellow African, as a young African looking to build wealth, I see the things that are happening, and I've seen and heard things that have happened in my family, in my extended family, in my community. And I think it's videos like his, channels like his, and hopefully this one that will help us to start thinking differently. Just because that's how it has been done, it doesn't mean that's how it has to remain. And that's what I will say about that, and pause there. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Be nice, be kind, and I'll see you in the next one.